Modern Storage Unpacked. Let's go.
Welcome back to Modern Storage Unpacked, where we make space for what matters. I'm Hannah, your host, and today we're tackling one of the biggest storage decisions you'll ever make: climate controlled versus non-climate controlled. Do you really need climate control, or is it just an extra expense? What happens if you store the wrong things in a non-climate unit, and how do you decide which one is best for you? We're unpacking it all today. Joining me today is Dalton, one of our experienced facility managers at Modern Storage. He's seen firsthand how climate control really just makes all the difference. And today we're going to break down the facts, share some real stories, and help you figure out if climate-controlled storage is right for you. Dalton, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this because I've had so many customers ask, do I really need climate control? And honestly, a lot of people don't realize how much it can impact your stuff. So I'm glad that we can get into some details about this.
Yeah, absolutely. For starters, can you share what even climate control storage is?
Yeah. So climate control, it's basically a storage unit that regulates, temperature and humidity. Most units, it needs to keep it between 55 and 80 degrees, with humidity levels controlled to protect your belongings from examples like mold, warping, and even cracking.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it's kind of like your favorite air-conditioned spot on a hot summer day, but for your stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
So why should we really care about this? I mean, my garage seems fine to store some stuff, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like your garage or attic might seem like a good option, but extreme temperature swings and moisture are really, they're tough on certain items. So, for example, if you leave your wooden furniture in a humid space, you might end up with some warped pieces. They're not going to look quite the same again. Same goes for like leather. Moisture can cause cracking, and we don't even want to get started on electronics, right? Internal corrosion can be a complete nightmare.
Oh, wow. Okay, so no more leaving my old leather jacket out in the garage.
Yeah, correct.
Got it. But let's dig in a little bit deeper. What are some of the oddest things that you've seen people store in these climate-controlled units?
Oh, you're going to love this. One of the weirdest things I've seen is a life-size mannequin, and not just any mannequin. It's like one of those at like a haunted house display. And I know, imagine open the door to see that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I get it, like keeping it in good condition for next year's Halloween, but it definitely caught me off guard. Yeah.
Wait, like that's crazy because I have the exact same experience. This happened to me just a few weeks back. I was walking one of my climate-controlled hallway units, and I guess this guy was just unloading some stuff in, and as I'm walking down, he had his unit open, and I was walking past, and literally Michael Myers was right there just staring at me. I had to do a double take.
It really is the worst thing. I had opened a unit, true story, one time, and it was right there on the right. It's the same side of the door that I was on, and I actually jumped back. Ian was with me.
Wow, yeah. Who knew Halloween mannequins were so popular to store in storage, right?
Yeah.
Wow. I bet that was a conversation starter, like it was with me. So why do we really need climate-controlled storage? I feel like it's more than just protecting antiques and valuables, right?
Yeah, it's about preserving your important and valuable things that you might not even realize like are sensitive, to humidity or climate change. For example, like books and documents, paper can be easily, faded or become brittle if exposed, to the wrong levels. So, and let's not forget about music, like instruments, like especially woodwind, stringed instruments, really need a stable environment to avoid the warping or cracking.
Wow, I would have never thought about instruments. So thank you so much for bringing up that tip. That's a really good point.
Those are expensive too. So
yeah,
you definitely
absolutely. So Dalton, what are the top things that people should be storing in climate controlled, even if they don't have vintage guitars to protect?
Yeah, so again, it's basically like anything made of wood or leather, furniture, even some clothing, like furs and stuff like that. They say not to put in the units. Again, electronics like TVs, computers, audio equipment, they can corrode or short circuit if exposed to too much moisture. I can't stress this enough, like old family photos, important documents, artwork, all of that stuff can really suffer without proper storage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All of my childhood photos dated back before Facebook albums, if those get ruined, you can't just reprint them. So that's absolutely a good point.
Yeah, it's irreplaceable, it's sentimental. You don't want to take the risk. So it's like, hey, you might even want to store things like wine or collectibles in there as well. Trading cards, comic books, even limited edition sneakers. how expensive shoes can get. So yeah, they all need climate control to keep their value intact.
Yeah, well, wine, now we're talking.
Yeah.
That's my alley. I might just need a unit just for my sneaker collection at this point, too.
Yeah.
But let's have a little fun. What is the most unexpected item you've ever helped someone store in a climate-controlled unit, besides, obviously, the Halloween mannequin?
Yeah. That was a good example. Yeah, it's this is gonna be a good one. I've actually had people store like an entire like vintage like arcade machines.
Really?
Yeah, like the big classic ones. Like I guess if you're like going to spend $1,000 on an
Pac-Man?
authentic Pac-Man machine, yep, you want to keep it in tip-top shape. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to know if you could have a climate-controlled storage unit for one thing that isn't technically like valuable and
Yeah.
not like a family heirloom or guitar, just something completely random, what would you store?
Mine would probably be, and this is something that could be in a drive-up unit, but I care for it so much. It's actually my kayak. So
Okay.
I'd keep my kayak in the climate-controlled unit.
Yeah.
Because again, it's my baby. I don't want nothing getting in. Yeah, I don't want no spiders in or nothing like that from a drive-up unit. So I just keep it in the climate control and
Yeah.
keep it clean.
Have you
So when I
named your
take it out-
kayak?
I haven't named it.
Okay, I just figured because you.
I haven't. I care so much. I haven't even gave it a name.
Yeah.
It's my
Gotta be-
kayak.
Yeah. Where do you like to float at? Like, where do you take
I'll
it out?
go, really the Caddo. I'll go to the Caddo a lot. Yeah, I've been to Buffalo once, mainly just in the state, in Arkansas right now.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Buffalo's my fave.
yeah, I've been to Florida once, actually.
Yeah, I've been on the Caddo once, but I know that the water levels need to be pretty high to
Yeah.
float that, or you're dragging, and I don't
Yep.
like that. So,
I ain't trying to carry that.
anyways, yeah, back to it. Back to serious business. If you had to give one piece of advice on someone when to use climate control, what would that be?
So, like, here's the takeaway. Like, if you got anything you're worried about lasting, whether it's valuable or it's, of course, sentimental, which can be valuable at the same time.
Yeah.
It's worth the investment to store it in a climate-controlled unit, whether it's your grandmother's china, your favorite vinyl records, family heirlooms. You'll thank yourself later by putting it in that climate-controlled unit.
Yeah, awesome advice, Dalton. And hey, if anyone out there is still unsure whether they should upgrade their storage, just ask yourself, would I be devastated if this item got ruined? If the answer is yes, then it probably does belong in a climate-controlled unit. So thanks so much for the great tips, Dalton.
Yeah, of course. And remember, if it's worth protecting, it's worth the climate control.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So now that we know all about climate-controlled storage, let's talk about the flip side, non-climate controlled. When would that be a good option? I'm guessing not everything needs to be treated like a delicate antique, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we all know we have garage-style items that,
Yeah.
they sit in the garage and it's safe there because it's not affected by the climate. So they're perfect for items that aren't really impacted by temperature or humidity changes. These are like your typical drive-up units or standard indoor units that don't have the fancy temperature and humidity controls. The cool thing is they offer, great flexibility and super convenient if you just need somewhere to store things, and again, that aren't temperature sensitive. So it is convenient just to drive up to that unit, roll up a door, throw your item in, or take it out and leave. So we do get the convenience, okay?
Yeah. So if I'm storing my beach towels, camping gear, or even some gardening tools, that would be a good use for like a non-climate then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like non-climate. They're perfect for like outdoor equipment, lawnmowers, tools, patio furniture.
Yeah.
Anything that can handle a little heat or cold, or that's built to be outside, of course. Anyway, as long as it doesn't need that extra protection from climate control.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, if it's tough enough for the outdoors, it's a good for non-climate storage. But tell me, Dalton, what's the most random thing you've ever stored in a non-climate controlled unit? No, it's not your kayak.
Yeah, not the kayak. Yeah. No, that's a fun question. So one time I actually had someone store an entire set of outdoor yard gnomes. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, the same
Gnomes?
same look.
Like
yeah,
Gnomes?
Like, yep. That's how you spell it. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, a whole collection of them, different sizes. It's like not exactly delicate, so like a non-climate unit worked perfectly for them. Because of course they do just sit outside. But it was like the perfect little gnome army, just in there ready for battle.
Yeah, that's so funny. That is hilarious. A yard gnome army. Imagine pulling up to your unit and seeing all of them just like lined up. That is like crazy.
Yeah, it was a sight.
Well, you mentioned outdoor equipment earlier. So what else would be a good fit for non-climate?
Yeah, so like they're also good for like vehicles, cars, motorcycles, RVs, boats, things again that are outside typically most of the time. As long as they've been winterized, they can easily handle temperature fluctuations. You don't need climate control for things that are designed to be outside or have been built to withstand, of course, the elements. So,
Yeah, good point.
yeah, I mean, if you can put it in a non-climate unit, why not, right, for that convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I've got a motorcycle, I'm not riding through the winter months so I could probably put that in a non-climate
Yeah,
storage then.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
right. Yeah. And with storing vehicles too, like a little tip, like especially with cars, like you either want to have the gas tank completely empty or completely full. Like if you have it halfway full, like moisture can build up like in your gas tank and then it would rust on the inside. So that's
Oh,
actually like a storage tip. If you store your vehicle, either completely drain the gas or
really? I
just
never would
have
have
it
thought
full.
about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
I'd
like
be a
that
little bit
being
nervous
here.
having it really full, just because I know you're not really supposed to have like flammables or
Yeah,
stuff
you're
like that
also
in there.
yeah, that's very true. Well, have it empty then.
Empty it out.
Empty it out.
That's a great point. So we're so also things like maybe like outdoor type furniture, cars, those random yard gnomes,
Yeah.
What about things like metal or plastic storage bins? Are those good fit for non-climate storage too?
Yeah, definitely. Like anything stored in metal, plastic bins is usually fine for a non-climate controlled unit. These materials again don't get impacted really by humidity or temperature fluctuations, like wood or leather would.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you got like holiday decorations, some of those and old camping gear or anything like that, a non-climate unit is solid to put it. Just not cardboard boxes. Cardboard boxes are not good for non-climate units.
There we
So
go.
put them in plastic, put them in metal tins. Yeah.
Well, speaking of holiday decorations, how many people actually store their Christmas trees in their storage units? Because honestly, it feels like a really good candidate for a non-climate unit.
Yeah, you would be surprised. Many people do store like their artificial Christmas trees in non-climate units. As long as they're in a box, again, packed away. Again, if it is in a box, maybe not keep it on direct contact with the concrete. Put it on top of something.
Yeah.
But they don't really need any special temperature care. So yeah, seasonal items you don't really have to worry about them much in a drop-up unit. Yeah.
Sweet. Kind of reclaim some space from your house too.
Yep.
You only need that once a year.
Yeah, that's right.
Some people keep it up year round though, and
was
just
gonna-
like decorate it for the different
was gonna say,
seasons
some
of the
people-
holidays.
yeah.
Like Valentine's Day, it's got hearts, and Easter's got little Easter bunnies and stuff. Like it's a
Yeah.
great idea. You never have to take it down, but imagine replacing all those light bulbs. Like
Yeah.
they go out probably a lot quicker. Well, awesome. I have a question that I've always wondered, Dalton. Do people ever store things like inflatable rafts or kayaks? I know that you do, but
Yep.
is that something that other people do? Because they seem like they really could take up a lot of space. That might be a good fit for it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like inflatable rafts, kayaks, paddle boards, any outdoor gear like that. And since those items are mostly left, being outside or in the water, built to handle any temperature changes, as long as inflatables are deflated and packed away, they fit perfectly in a non-climate unit.
Awesome.
Yeah, and especially like if you can, while you're storing it, store stuff vertical, save you some space in the drive-up unit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you can put more stuff in there.
Yeah. Imagine someone deflating their kayak with like a massive sigh of relief. Like, finally, I have all this space back in my garage. It's now mine.
Yeah.
How do you know when to go with non-climate storage versus climate controlled storage? Like, is there a good, kind of.
Kind of medium there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really comes down to, again, the sensitivity of your items. So if it's something that's tough and can handle a bit of temperature change, like tools, vehicle, plastic bins, and a non-climate controlled unit, is going to be the best way to go.
Okay.
But if it's something more delicate, valuable, again, family heirlooms, electronics, can we tell you how many times we see TVs and drive-up units? So yeah, it needs to be in a climate control.
Yeah.
Like fine arts. So yeah, but climate control is going to be a better choice to protect from potential damage to those items. So.
Okay, so if it's something you'd store in your garage or a shed without like a second thought, then it's probably something a non-climate unit could stand.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Yeah, the goal is really just thinking about how your items react to temperature and humidity. If they're built for it, they'll probably be just fine in a non-climate unit.
Awesome. Well, I have a wild one for you. If you could store anything in a non-climate controlled unit, what is the most ridiculous thing you'd pick just for fun?
All right, just for fun. So this is a good one. Like, you know what? I think I would store a giant inflatable bounce house. Like, no reason really, just for fun, right? I just think it'd be hilarious to roll up to a unit and see a huge inflatable structure taking up the whole space. Just imagine the confusion by people walking.
Oh my gosh, that would be a great way to spend like your breaks at work. All right, guys. So we have gathered that whether it's yard gnomes or kayaks, it's good to know when a standard unit will do the job. Thanks for all the tips, Dalton.
Anytime. And remember, when it comes to storage, it's all about knowing or like what's tough enough for the elements, what needs just a little extra TLC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tender love and care.
Well, let's get into the nitty gritty of non-climate controlled units. Dalton, what happens when someone stores the wrong items in one? I'm sure you've seen some pretty interesting things.
Yep, I have. We all have. Yep, with storage. So, like, let me tell you, one of the most common mistakes I see is people storing things again, like wooden furniture or non-climate controlled units. You wouldn't believe how much heat and humidity can actually mess with the wood, get warped or cracked, like we were saying earlier. And this is a fun one. Sometimes the wood can actually split apart. Not
Really?
to mention mold. Mold love those conditions. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
I'd hate to walk in on that. So.
Mold is not everyone's best friend. That's gross.
Yeah.
What is the deal with electronics? I know you're mentioning TVs.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you wouldn't want to stick your TV and computer there in there either. But like, what happens with those?
Yeah, they just get. I mean, they can get so hot. So it's like. Electronics and non-climate, they're not friends, okay? They're not supposed to ever meet, right? So in the summer, those temperatures can soar over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And so they just can't handle it, if they're sitting in those conditions, especially for a long period of time. It can overheat. You can pretty much just kiss them goodbye. So that's why it's best to just keep
Waste
them
of
in a
money.
controlled environment. Again, even if you're spending just a little bit more, you may still have that 60-inch TV once you get it out of the unit. So
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. And I'm sure you spent money on the TV and you're paying money to store it. So I think it's worth a little bit extra to put it in a climate unit to have your
Exactly.
TV back.
yeah, exactly.
Well, here's a random thought. What would be the worst item to accidentally leave in a non-climate controlled unit? Like something that could really just ruin your day.
Yeah, so like imagine this, if you're moving some stuff into storage and you forget about a bag of, let's say, your prized vintage sushi knives.
Oh, I love sushi.
Yeah, so
Get me talking.
so like metal can do okay in non-climate units, but these knives are, beautifully crafted. So if you did leave them in a humid unit, they could rust or corrode so fast, and that would be just an epic disaster. I know knives can be expensive as well. So
Yeah. I didn't even think about the rust factor. So that is a really good point.
Yeah.
That's one way to turn your sushi knives into a sad, corroded mess.
Yeah, that's right.
But seriously, does humidity cause problems with other things too?
Yeah, so for sure, like humidity is the real culprit here.
Okay.
Things like clothing, mattresses, even books can mold in no time. I've seen a perfectly nice mattress get all mushy and moldy, and just from being in the humid storage unit. So let's not even talk about the mold on clothes. So it's like if they take a life of their own in that kind of environment. So they just growing mold left and right. So again, putting it in plastic bins and stuff like that though can help clothing. But if you just have clothes like on a hung up, then on a clothes rack, you just don't want to leave it exposed like that.
What is the worst thing, Dalton, that you have seen just get ruined because of temperature and humidity?
Yeah, so one time a customer stored a leather armchair in a non-climate controlled unit, thinking it was just fine. When they opened it, though, after, again, only a few months, sometimes it doesn't take long, it was already covered in mold, and the leather had cracked. So they ended up having to toss it, leather and moisture. It's just not a good combo.
Oh my goodness, that's awful. A nice leather chair too, just like completely ruined. That's so sad. And I'm sure there's like no way to save it after that too.
I mean, sadly, no. I mean, once that leather absorbs that mold, it's pretty much done, especially once it starts cracking and stuff like that. I mean, again, you could redo the whole chair maybe, but you might as well just buy another one at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, once that mold starts, it's like a ticking clock.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking. Oh my goodness. I feel like anything that can't handle a little bit of humidity should just be left out of non-climate controlled units altogether, I'm guessing. So, but speaking of things that need special care, what's one thing that people always store in the wrong kind of unit?
It's paper, believe it or not. People love storing old books, magazines, especially photos like we spoke about earlier, and they wonder why they're curling or fading. The temperature and moisture, again, it's brutal for paper. It can get brittle, or even worse, it could turn yellow and just fall apart.
That's definitely one thing I don't feel like a lot of people know about, because that is a very common thing, I'm sure, to store is, files and documents and just paper in general. So great advice. And old family photos as well, documents from your high school days, like your high school diploma, those are things that I guess just end up crinkled and faded. Definitely don't put them in non-climate.
Yeah, it's literally one of the most heartbreaking things to see. A family photo album or a collection of old comic books can be ruined by humidity. Once that paper starts curling and fading, there's really no fixing it.
Oh, that's so sad. You've got these precious memories or collections and they just disintegrate. So What's the takeaway? Should everyone just go ahead and just spring for a climate control unit?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if your items are valuable or sentimental, like yes, absolutely. Climate control is a small price to pay to make sure that your items stay in good condition. If they're durable or can handle temperature swings, like again, like tools, outdoor equipment, some furniture, outdoor furniture, then non-climate should work just fine.
Good advice, Dalton. It's all about really weighing how sensitive your items are to these temperature and humidity changes. But I am curious if you could store a time capsule in your unit. Right now, what's one item that you would put in it that would leave just future generations absolutely scratching their heads?
Yeah, I think maybe I would put like a pile of like old floppy disks.
Oh,
Right? Like
that's a good
like
one.
the ones that have absolutely much no use anymore really. Imagine someone just from 50 years in the future like finding those and having no idea what they were for. So it'd be a fun little mystery for
Yeah,
them.
that's absolutely genius. Future generations would probably think like they were some kind of ancient artifact or something.
Probably so.
Well, thank you for all the great storage advice, Dalton. I do appreciate it. And anyone listening, trying to figure out which type of storage unit they need, is there any questions that they could ask themselves that could help them determine that
Yeah, of
choice?
course. So, some great questions that could be like, like how long are they storing the items? Again, with long-term storage, it's often going to require that climate control. Like, are your items sensitive to temperature or humidity? How valuable the items are that you're storing? And then, like, is your storage location in an area like with extreme weather? So again, it's like we talked about earlier. Last
Yeah.
week I was wearing my heaviest coat. This week I left all my coats at the house. So
Yeah.
Arkansas, for example, extreme weather changes. So
Yeah, we got all 4 seasons in one day.
yeah. So again, like climate control is going to be your safest bet. Again, it may cost a little bit more up front, but it'll protect your belongings from expensive damage. Because again, you're paying to store it, so you don't want to pay to store something that's going to be ruined in the end.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Those are great questions people can ask themselves. So let's talk about something that can make a huge difference when you're choosing between the two. Dalton, what should people look for when they're picking a facility? I'm sure not all storage options are created equal, and let's be real, some places can be way better than others.
yeah, that is exactly right. Cannot emphasize how right that is. So the quality of the storage facilities, they really can vary. Just like things like restaurants, hotels, and even apartments can vary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a great point. There's a huge difference between a burger from McDonald's and a burger from Five Guys. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's super important to check out the facility in person if you can, before signing anything. For climate controlled units, the biggest thing is to look for is consistent temperature and humidity control. Again, you want that temperatures between 55 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit year round. And of course, the humidity is controlled as well. That'll keep your items safe from things like mold, mildew, and that moisture damage.
yeah, I would have never thought to look for or ask about that. So that's a really great point.
Yeah. And I mean, you want to be able to, ask questions and, you probably want to store somewhere you feel comfortable asking them questions. So another thing is proper air circulation. So you need to have good airflow in the unit, whether usually maintained by like a good HVAC system. So if that system is maintained regularly, it'll prevent any stagnant air or moisture getting in there.
For sure. HVAC. Those guys are like the unsung heroes of climate control, right?
That's right.
If your HVAC system is working properly, it's like your stuff has its own personal air conditioner. But what about the actual storage units themselves? Is there anything that people can check for inside those? Because I'm sure not everybody can really check for the HVACs.
Yeah,
besides
yeah,
asking.
exactly. Yeah, good question. So, I mean, you want to make sure it's clean, well-sealed units to keep the dust and pests out, and again, control your moisture. No one wants to find their stuff covered in dust bunnies,
Yeah.
or even worse, damage from water leaks. So,
Oh.
look for units that are properly sealed. Check for things, like those door seals, and make sure there's no gaps or big gaps in the structure.
Yeah, definitely don't want to find your heirloom china sitting in a puddle of water or a bunch of dust mites hanging out. So,
Right.
all right. So that is climate controlled. What about what should people look for when they're looking for a non-climate storage?
Yeah. So you would need to make sure it's well built and well ventilated to prevent heat building up in the unit during those summer months. So otherwise you might as well just leave your stuff in the back of your car on a hot day.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So well ventilated.
Yeah, ventilation is definitely key. Have you seen those videos of people trying to like bake cookies on their like dash and stuff?
Yeah, like frying egg or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Like imagine putting your stuff in a storage unit can just be like a hot box. So that's a
Yeah.
great point. Ventilation is definitely key.
Mhm.
What should people look for in a non-climate controlled unit besides, ventilation? Is there anything else? Any other tips you have for us?
Yeah, maybe like good drainage and again like moisture protection are huge. So if you're in an area where it does rain a lot, you want to make sure that that water is draining off, properly. You don't want water just piling up in front of the unit to where it might be seeping under that door. So proper drainage is definitely important to keep water damage out.
That's a great point. I mean, imagine just showing up and all your stuff is just soaking wet. Definitely, probably not the surprise you were hoping for.
Yeah, no.
Well, awesome. Thank you. So let's talk security. You mentioned security before. Why is this such an important factor?
Yeah, I mean it's everything. Like we mentioned earlier, I mean you want to feel safe with where you're keeping your items that are away from your home. So, if you live 20 minutes away from that storage unit, you're leaving it outside of your home. So you want to feel safe that your items are safe. So whether you are storing expensive equipment or sentimental family photos, you want to look for features like gated access, security cameras, and high quality locks. All these things are going to keep your stuff safe from theft or unauthorized access.
Yeah, I'd be pretty nervous about leaving my stuff in a facility that had just no locks or cameras. So that's a really good point. It feels like you're just asking for trouble at that point. So,
Right.
so when you're checking out a facility, it's not just about the unit itself, but you're pretty much saying it's like the whole setup, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like a good facility will make sure the place is clean, secure, well lit and well maintained. And, honestly, if you're looking at a facility that seems a little too cheap or has a lot of red flags, like poor lighting, lack of security cameras, or dusty units, you do want to be careful. So, again, it is always to check in person, get a tour if they'll give you one. So, it's always worth doing a little bit of research before committing.
Yeah, it's like when you're looking for another good restaurant, I always check the reviews or how clean the place
Mm-hmm.
looks before, I go and commit. So I'm sure the same goes for storage. Do your homework and check out the place before you sign into anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to again ask those facility questions. Ask the manager or the worker there. Things about their HVAC maintenance schedule, how often are units inspected, and whether they had any recent pest issues. Do they do pest control, quarterly? Or, yeah, it's okay to ask those questions. A good facility should be able to answer those for you.
Yeah, I love that. So it really just comes down to making sure your stuff is safe, protected from the elements, and locked down securely. So definitely worth the extra time to do a little checking around before making a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it might take a little bit of extra time, up front for you to kind of research and do your research, ask those questions, but it can save you a ton of headaches and damage later on.
Yeah.
And, no one wants to go through the trouble of storing their stuff only to find that it's been ruined later.
Well, such great advice, Dalton. Thank you so much for unpacking these tips with us today. I know that we went over a lot. So could you do a little quick recap for anybody that's just hopping on?
Yeah, sure. Just a quick recap. So, climate controlled storage units protects valuables from heat, cold, and humidity.
Okay.
Non-climate storage is best for those durable items that won't be affected by weather or temperature fluctuations. And in the end, when in doubt, climate controlled storage is the safest choice.
Awesome. Love that. So if you're looking for a climate controlled or non-climate controlled storage, visit a Modern Storage near you. Stop by one of our locations, or you can book your appointment online today. Next time on Modern Storage Unpacked, we're unpacking the ultimate showdown: garage versus storage.
Oh.
Which one really wins when it comes to protecting your stuff? You're really not going to want to miss this epic debate. And that's a wrap for today. Thanks for unpacking today's topic with us. And until next time, stay organized and make space for what matters.
That's a wrap for this episode of Modern Storage Unpacked. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and check out modernstorage.com for more ways to stay ahead in the storage industry. See you next time.